It's a bird. It's a plane. No, it's just a car flying through the air that almost crashed into Jorge Alcala, Matt Wallner, and Edouard Julien on the way to a Grapefruit League game. The Twins were already having a compelling and rich spring training before this happened, so this is a bit too much. But the players are all uninjured, generally okay, and just a little freaked out, which is how I get every time we get Locked On Twins.
You are Locked On Twins, your daily Minnesota Twins podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello again, everybody, and welcome back to Locked On Twins, your daily go-to source for the top Minnesota Twins insight, discourse, and analysis. Personally, it's my favorite show of the Imperial Locked On Podcast Network, which, by the way, brings you your team every day. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe where applicable. I'm Dave Brown, an MLB writer since Jason Kubel was old enough to get a driver's license. Not that he is implicated in any way in the flying car that just missed our Twins road trippers. I'm also a BBWA member and a Hall of Fame voter, by the way. Across the Great Plains of cyberspace is Brandon Warren, who knows how to drive puns right through my skull. Brandon was a Twins fan who became a Twins writer, and now he's both. As the site expert at Puckett's Pond, a blog about the Twins. You should check out Brandon's written work and mine at Puckett's Pond to supplement your Locked On Twins coverage. On the podcast today, the Twins got their swerve on, and it's a good thing they did because Matt Wallner, Edouard Julien, and Jorge Alcala are still alive to tell about it after some crazy driver down in Florida almost hit them all by driving their car or flying it the wrong way down a highway as the players were getting themselves to a Grapefruit League game on Monday. Phew. We also will look at who we think should hit leadoff for Rocco for real. Two of the more prominent candidates were in the cars in question that almost crashed. And we will look back at Dave St. Peter, the executive face of the organization since the mid-'90s, who started as an intern, improbably, became team president about 9 years ago, or CEO, I should say, team president in the, I don't know, one of those orders. You know, he got promoted. He got promoted. And is now a cushy consultant as Derek Falvey ascends into his new role. First, you need to be informed that Brandon and I are bringing you this show. Brandon, they're alive. The players are alive. And it's a good thing because they seem like nice boys. And it's what a wacky story. I think I missed it the first time. You told me about it. It broke this afternoon, but it happened on Monday. They were driving on the way to the Rays game in Port Charlotte. Port Charlotte, they didn't take this is the part of the story I don't understand. They were going to be on the team bus, but then they got an updated forecast that included rain, so the team told them to drive separately. So I don't know. Jorge Alcala and his brother was driving, and Jorge Alcala was a passenger in one car, and then trailing them was Matt Wallner driving and Edouard Julien. Will you rule again behind the wheel? I don't know. But Julien, so the story goes, notices all of a sudden that Wallner's freaking out. He's swearing and going, oh, my God, oh, my God. And then he looks up and he sees this car sort of cutting through the median and the shrubbery and whatnot. And then it gets airborne and almost hits the car in front of them, which has got Alcala in it. And then it almost hits them. And Julian's like, the car was so high in the air, I could see under it. The car completely missed them, the players, both cars, in the caravan, if you will. And Julien was under the impression that the guy or whoever, the driver, got back on the road and drove off. The police were not informed, as I understand it, from the stories that I've read. The players were not hurt. The cars were not hit. But it's just crazy stuff. I mean, I remember, Brandon, you're not old enough, but I remember when like Steve Olin and Tim Cruz were killed in spring training in a boating
1993 Lake of the Little Lake Nelly.
Nelly, yes,
something like that. It was in Florida.
Yeah, down there in Miami area or Winter Haven. I don't remember.
Yeah, Tim Cruz, Steve Olin, Bobby Ojeda. Is that it? Is that those three?
I think so. Bobby Ojeda got the top of his scalp removed. I mean, that's how close he was to being dead as well.
Yeah.
I was Steve Olin were not as lucky, but I mean,
I was
different.
seven.
This is a car, but I'm old enough to remember that stuff. So it's scary as heck out there.
Yeah, I was 7, and it also happened during spring training, which is also, parallels there. But that was when I kind of started reading and listening to news, baseball stuff, Sports Center, that sort of thing. So it was something I was aware of. That and the Vince Coleman firecracker incident were kind of the first two that I think I remember kind of understanding what had happened. And yeah, it makes you wonder if that driver was under the influence of alcohol. I'm sorry, that was terrible.
That's one of those puns that you like to drive through my skull.
Yeah. Just wild. I mean, nobody knows about it publicly until 2-3 days later. Nobody reports anything. It's just, I have more questions than answers, I think. Like,
how do you
not report that? I mean, I guess, like, here's the thing. If you report it and traffic cameras pick it up, there's still probably a chance for that person to be charged.
Yeah, there are dash cams in the world. I don't know if either car had a dash cam. Jorge was, like I said,
or witnesses. Empower witnesses to speak up.
And this is, I'm thinking of other incidences that happened near them. Remember, I'm Matt Bush. I'm bleeping Matt Bush. He hit a guy.
Didn't he drive over his head with a helmet on?
Something like that. Yes.
I think he backed over the guy's head, but he had a helmet on, and so he survived. But
and the guy was driving a motorcycle, I want to say.
Yeah, it was. I'm Matt Bush. Yeah.
Old Tammany Road or whatever it was called. Not too far away in the big picture from where this happened. So stuff like that happened. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if there are any other witnesses. Alcala, when he gives interviews, he tends to do it in Spanish. He's probably not going to want to call the police. Julien and the passenger side, even though he's French first, he's a Frenchman. He could have probably called I mean, I don't know. I would have mentioned it to the police. Maybe they're like, well, we got to get to work, and they're going to make us stay. I mean, I can see why.
Yeah,
people don't want to call the cops for reasons one or another, but
it's still it's common good of everybody else, because if it was a person of sound mind, body, and were they distracted, and if they weren't sound, then who are they going to be endangering next? I don't know. It's easy for me to say from here. That's all I'm saying.
What's the deal? Here's what Phil wrote, and Phil Miller in the Star Tribune. The players normally would have taken the team's bus, but they weren't on the original travel roster. When the forecast called for heavy rain, which indeed canceled the game after 2 innings, the Twins changed their roster, and the players were asked to drive to Charlotte Sports Park. So does that mean like the bus had already left?
Maybe that's the only way they can get backwards. Oh, it's going to rain.
Why would they be adding more players? Why would they be adding more players to a situation where they thought it would rain? I don't understand.
You were doing it sounded like a Seinfeld bit, like, what's the deal? And it reminded me of when Elaine had the company credit card and was like getting extra stuff on there. It's like, are you trying to get extra players in? Like, come on, we're pulling a fast one on the Rays today. We're gonna play our starting lineup or something. I don't know. It just the logic of it is escaping me at this time. And again, I never claimed to be all that brilliant, but it seems like, unless the bus had left and then they made that change, which doesn't make sense because they knew rain was in the forecast, like, none of this adds up.
Yeah, I mean, we're at the point of speculating, and maybe we shouldn't do that, but it is
right. It's
strange.
It's probably
just all strange.
Well, and recalling a story, you got 3 different people seeing something traumatic, dramatic, one or the other, if not a little bit of both. There's going to be differing accounts too. And so who knows? But it definitely does trip some triggers in my brain of like, huh.
I saw the Athletic story. I saw MLB.com story. I saw Phil's story. You know what? I should read Betsy. I didn't read Betsy yet. The accounts all seem to, only Phil had the thing about the team bus, which in a way makes sense that only one person would write that because it doesn't really make sense how it was told. But 3 days after it happened, I don't know.
I'm not saying somebody's trying to say or do something they're not supposed to, but it just doesn't. pass the sniff test in terms of logic. And
there's something about this that has not been reported yet.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. And that's not to say it's about the players either. It's more along the lines of something else in this event happened, and it would probably tie it together a little better for us commoners.
I would like the part. I can infer why somebody wouldn't want to necessarily call the police, especially like Wallner's not going to do it. He's driving. Alcala's brother is going to do it.
He's going to feel bad.
Right.
Julien
and Alcala are not from this country. So I don't know. I can see that part. The part I don't get is why they were driving and were not on the bus. And that part I don't get. And I wonder if that sort of confusion and that paradox, contradiction, if you will, is where this, that's where somebody doesn't want to get in trouble for them not being on the bus.
Yeah, you know what I mean? And there was that Jordan Balazovic getting sucker punched in a bar a few years ago. Like, I don't know, spring training happenings that are outside of the ball yard rarely tend to be positive if they break news, if they're news breaking. I mean, if Reese McGuire is in the parking lot of a Dollar Tree, run the other way, that sort of thing. So
with your eyes averted. Yeah. I did want to read this
with your eyes perverted.
I did want to read this part of the story too. As they continued up the parkway, Wallner pulled alongside the Alcala's car. And I was like, and what? Julien got out, tried to get out, and they tried to do like a moving exchange where Julien went into the other car like in some Mad Max movie. No,
the Duke boys are at it again.
Yeah, I thought of that too. And Julian's like, I can see the bottom of his car. Wee-haw, Uncle Jesse.
He did go to Auburn, so he does have some South in him, I guess.
He knows about that stuff. I rolled down my window, got out. No, he didn't say that. I rolled out my window and looked at Jorge, and he was tapping his chest like, oh, his heart was going nuts. And maybe it still is a few days later. It was something really scary, a little traumatizing. But thanks to God, we survived, Alcala said. Every time I leave my home, I thank God for another day. That's some wisdom right there, actually. I wanted to get that on the record that he said that.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
It's
like
they're all alive, including Wallner and Julien, who are, I guess, possible leadoff candidates. Julien
good segue.
Did it last year? What? You saw the segue in the graphic.
No. I just mean that was really well done.
Thank you. Well, I try to tie it all together. That's what we do here. Julien was leadoff man and second place hitter for something like 85 games out of his 109 last year. In 23. And then last year, of course, started out as a leadoff hitter, didn't last in the majors all that long and was sent down and so forth. But he's still, because of his on-base percentage, ability to get on, Julien is a candidate to, if he wins the second base job or wins a DH job, against right-handed pitching, certainly, he could be a leadoff hitter. Wallner has been leading off frequently in spring training so far, even against left-handers. So, and as I've mentioned before, there are reasons, Rocco and other managers will put lineups together in spring training for a reason.
Yeah. And
it's a lot of it has to do with like individual benefits for these players as they're working out. It's not so much lineup construction to score runs in a game to win. It's different than the regular season. So, but Wallner is a leadoff hitter. He does see a good amount of pitches. He's got a decent walk rate. It was 9.2% last year, which was fifth on the team, and a 372 on base, which was second on the team. So if those are like kind of my basic, that's my wish list for who would make a good leadoff hitter. Somebody who gets on base. It isn't that complicated. There are more factors involved, but Wallner could do that. He's also kind of big thunder. I mean, he might be, as I've said before, he might be their best hitter this year. It's not out of the realm of possibility at all. And maybe you want those guys to hit second or third or whatever, clean up.
Yeah.
And Julien, 11% walk rate, .292 on base percentage because he didn't really swing the bat last year, but he's capable of getting on base as long as he fixes his swing. So those two guys could be leadoff hitters. Santana's gone. He would have been all right. Correa actually maybe would be the best leadoff hitter statistically speaking.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point.
Walk and 388 on base percentage. What do you think? Who should be hitting at the top of the lineup?
Well, let's pull back to last year. Do you know who led the team in games of hitting leadoff? We could go down the list. Nobody led off 50 times last year. 48 was the top. Do you have any guess who that was?
Magoo?
Nope, Magoo was third with 33.
Wasn't Larnach, was it?
Larnach was fourth with 13.
It's Willie Castro.
Willie Castro was first with 48. Julien second with 38. Margot, Larnach, Jeffers 10 times. Kirilloff 8 times. May his career rest in peace. Byron Buxton 6 times. Carlos Santana 4 times. Brooks Lee once. And Matt Wallner once. So my question to you is, do you get any sense that maybe these two are competing with each other for that role? Or is it more along the lines of, like we've said, lefties getting plate appearances, that sort of thing? And if it's less about those two competing for it, who did you come into this spring, coming into camp, kind of feel like made sense to lead off? Because this is a team where I kind of was banging the drum for them to trade for Lamont Wade Jr. to play first base and lead off and have some outfield utility. Now, again, I'm perfectly fine with Ty France, and he's swinging the stick pretty good so far. But as far as leadoff hitters, they don't have a prototypical Denard Span or even like a Joe Mauer, anything like that on base guy who doesn't have a ton of power. I think from seeing pitchers and dissecting what you've seen standpoint, the leadoff batter passing on intel for what that pitcher has that day, Correa is the natural choice. But if you want someone to get on base, you can do a lot worse than Wallner and Julien.
I wonder sometimes why Correa doesn't lead off. I don't know if that's his. Maybe that's him.
Plus, maybe it's a function of more plate appearances because numbers dictate. I think every spot in the order is worth somewhere between 12 and 15 added plate appearances over the course of a season. And so, I mean, I've seen a lot of studies of like, well, your number 2 batter is going to have the most runners on. The number 3 batter is going to come up with the bases empty and 2 out the most often during the season. Like, there's a lot of different ways to skin a cat in this instance. But from a standpoint of leadoff, getting the most plate appearances and helping disseminate the information of the starting pitcher that day.
Stop tweeting.
Yeah, right. Correa would be a fine choice.
Yeah.
And maybe he would against lefties.
Maybe. Rocco has talked about doing things a little different than they did last year because the season didn't work out. And I think, there's more than one way to skin a lineup. I don't know that I don't know that it also, I don't know how much it matters because, you mentioned the extra at bats and so forth. That's a good thing. But also it's been, I don't know if it's been proven, but it's been, the supposition is that you don't really affect how the runs are scored that much by the lineup. It really, the season is so long and there are so many X factors that it doesn't necessarily matter. And, so it does make sense to put your better hitters. Yeah, it's a little overrated. It does make sense to put your better hitters at the top just because they'll come up more often, and that especially could matter in a game where if there are a couple of, at bats that are, a couple guys draw walks and then the lineup turns over and then your big thunder comes up again. So Correa makes sense to me. Wallner makes sense, at least against righties. I don't think Rocco's going to put him lead off regular season games against left-handed batters. I don't think that's in Rocco's head.
No.
I think Rocco is still going to do what he did last year.
They would do Bader before him, I think. Yeah.
Bader does not walk enough.
I think he'd lead off before Wallner against lefties.
Against lefties, maybe, if he's right against correct.
He used to walk
good
too,
against lefties.
When he came up, he walked. Walked.
Yeah, he did. He does not walk as much
anymore.
as he used to. Last year, he really bottomed out.
What about Ty France getting hit by pitches and stuff? That could make sense.
Yes, I would say, if Wallner's going to lead off, against righties, then France can lead off against lefties, and then you maybe go Correa second from there. So it isn't. It would be nice if the Twins. What would be nice if Brooks Lee can lead off. If Brooks Lee can get his act together. I know he just got here to the majors, and we can't be like putting pressure on the guy and having him give up and all that. But Brooks Lee, to me, would, if he's going well, that could be a future kind of leadoff guy, not as far as speed, but as far as getting on base. He's just got to hit. So
you could hit him with I see Wallner, I see France, I don't see runners advance. And
sure.
I'm sorry. Why don't we take it to break with that note?
Yeah, go ahead. You break it.
I apologize.
No, you don't.
What I refuse to apologize for, though, is telling you to eat wonderful pistachios, because they're a snack that's both delicious and nutritious. Crack into a good source of protein with wonderful pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts you can find. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein. If you're unaware, that's about 10% of what your expected daily value is. And they're also packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help you keep feeling full longer. It's the wonderful thing about nuts as a snack is, they will give you that extended fullness. I prefer the shelled ones, breaking them apart, spitting them into a bottle or like a sunflower seed, or throwing them into a bowl, and taking a little bit of time, because then I kind of process them nicely. But if you want the no-shell variety, they got those too. Perfect grab-and-go snack for busy days. If I'm sitting here at my desk, or if I'm driving around town and don't want to eat something mindlessly that's not very good for me, this is a good way to eat something that takes a little time, and I love it. I think it's perfectly great. And again, shelled, not shelled, whatever you like, Wonderful Pistachios has the nut for you. Get snackin' and get crackin' with the snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more.
We are back. Locked On Twins. We've talked about the harrowing experience the boys had on the road with the out-of-control car going the wrong way down the highway. We've talked about some of those boys maybe being the leadoff hitter for the Twins. And what else is going on? Dave St. Peter is going to sort of transition finally into his advisory role. He has been the team's president and CEO for a number of years. He's basically the face of the franchise when we're not talking about a player. He's the guy that the Pohlads are, kind of, not that they're shrinking violets, but they let Dave St. Peter sort of be their voice. What I don't know is like exactly what policy and oversight he had. He's associated with like the TV deal and Target Field at one time, and what does he control versus what is he really? Is he not just a spokesperson? Is he? I mean, when you're a CEO, I don't know. It seems like there's more to it than that, more power than that, more responsibility. But the Twins have kind of wanted him to be that guy that is seen as responsible for all these things, overseeing the entire operation of the team. So we're going to give him credit for the good and the bad. And it's a crazy story. As a lot of people know, he started off as an intern. He ran one of the team stores at one time. And
Twins
then,
Pro Shop.
Yes, Twins Pro Shop. And then a few years later, started ascending the executive ladder. And for a number of years has been the CEO and was the president before that. And now Derek Falvey is going to get promoted and be in that role. And St. Peter is going to be an advisor as the team gets sold, I think. And then once that happens, it's sort of implied, or I'm inferring that then he'll retire. do something. I don't know, or it'll just be up to the new owners, whoever they might be.
What
is your impression of his legacy?
Well, I think his role to me was always more business partnerships and money. So the financial aspect of payroll and dictating and disseminating again. I'm gonna have to go to Disseminators and
disintegrating.
But I always felt like, business partnerships and that sort of thing. I don't think he had anything in terms of like influence over the roster or like player development or anything like that. And I think at times maybe some people conflated all of that. And with that said too, that's probably what Derek Falvey's role is going to be, is all of the above, which is it's a lot of food on your plate, to say the least. What I'm wondering though, I think his legacy will be he was a good company man, and you can take that however you want to take it, but that's how you keep a job for that long under the same family owning the team. The Twins are an organization that has been rooted in stability for a long time. Since 1986, they've had Tom Kelly, Ron Gardenhire, Paul Molitor, and Rocco Baldelli as managers. 4 managers in almost 40 years. Like, I didn't miss anybody, right? That's just unheard of. Like, that's an unheard of bit of stability. Like, the Mets have that many sometimes in a 3-year span. And
I was going to say the White Sox had like 4 managers in 48 hours once, I think, recently. So,
well, and so he exemplifies the stability, but he also just represents it. He is the stability that he exemplifies. And my question, and it's more along the lines of what you think than what you or I would know, is what's the significance of the date? Because if the sale, which once was believed to be, moving forward and maybe was going to be the Ishbia brother, do you think it means something behind the scenes is moving closer? The Twins operate in darkness. Free agents very rarely leak. All kinds of stuff very rarely leak. Do you think it's indicative of anything under the surface? Is it to give Falvey a couple weeks to a month to get ready to do that role before the regular season hits? I'm just trying to kind of connect some dots behind the scenes. What is the reason behind it being, I think it's March 3rd?
My guess, and it's only that, is that it coincides with a rough estimate of when they first announced that this was happening back in November, I believe. Of
November 12th, I think.
When they thought that we'd be really close to Ishbia taking over. I think that is sort of the genesis of why it's now. And
the genesis of Dave St. Peter's exodus.
That's pretty funny. That's a nice turn of a phrase. So, I mean, that's my guess. And, there's lots of details we don't know. Like, was it a favor to organization or to person to give him this extra time, to give Falvey extra time, Jeremy Zoll a little extra time to kind of run through? So, March 1st is kind of the end of the off season as far as the transition from the previous season. Now everything is really 2025. Everybody's on the roster,
like a fiscal year.
Yes. We've entered the new era with Twins TV. That has become official. They're selling subscriptions. That's done. Falvey doesn't have to deal with he will, but have to deal with whatever goes wrong. But, I guess presumably the heavy lifting with that is over. So all those things had to happen. The roster had to take shape. The TV thing needed to be settled. The tickets needed to go on sale for individual games, that kind of stuff. That's all recently done. So now is the time for the transition. And, the thought was that pretty soon there would be new ownership. So I think does that answer your question?
Does any part of you think that there is a movement behind the scenes towards a new owner, or are you thinking that's wishful thinking on my part?
I think that's wishful thinking. I think it is. Again, I don't know, but I believe that what has been presented, that we just all kind of found out recently that Ishbia wasn't going to take over. That's within the last couple of weeks. So I don't think this date has anything to do with, oh, now we got a new guy coming in. I could be wrong. I'd be happy to be wrong, but I think it's more in the plan of how it's been all along that this is the time. So
yeah.
Yeah.
So 3 puffs of smoke on March 3rd, and a new baseball pope will be elected.
You brought up a good, yeah. I don't know about that, but just at least for the rest of this season and the short-term running of the entire operation, it still is kind of fascinating to me how Falvey is going to handle this.
Yeah.
And it's a lot. There's a lot going on, especially when you have to deal with all that stuff St. Peter did and still kind of be pretty much in charge of the players on top of it.
Mm-hmm.
St. Peter never had anything to do with that, other than I think maybe from a media relations or public relations overlord kind of standpoint. With Kirby Puckett, they're famously linked throughout history, and
right.
Puckett has his career had mostly been over by then, but still. So from that standpoint, he's dealt with players, but not like player personnel or trades or anything like that. And that's just there's a lot going on there. So we'll see how Falvey handles it. He's going to earn his keep, though. There's a lot of responsibility now.
Nice trade, Dave. St. Peter was never a thing.
No, it isn't, and it doesn't have the same ring to it. So, but we're going to keep nice whatever Falvey going as we move forward. And speaking of moving forward, you guys out there in listener and viewer land, you're going to move forward with your lives because this episode is over. And for Brandon Warren, I'm Dave Brown, wishing you all a very pleasant good evening, and saying that Locked On Twins is going to Alexei Casilla tomorrow night, because tonight is done.
It's almost tomorrow.
Yes.